Okay, so we back in the mine. Devlog number 5. Yes, 5. This is 5 because I cut one of the original 5 I was gonna make. Anyways, we're gonna talk a little bit about unit tiers and balancing in this one. This is kind of a little bit of a work in progress, but I will spoil you with some sneak peek of this. It's just the mech facilities. Now, the mech facilities currently make 1 to 4 units. We have the Ferris Technologies combat suit, which is an aging piece of hardware. To put it lightly, it's in fact functionally obsolete by the time of this setting, but that's fine. Got to use old hardware somehow. Uh, the Marathon by Having Arms. These pretty solid piece. Um, and we have Houselander by Mars Tech Industries. Oh, so yeah, just Mars Tech. And then we have the Thunderbolt, which is actually flying, as you can see from the Mars Tech as well. Now, the manufacturer isn't super important other than deciding like the visual style. You can see that like the FT combat suit is hilariously boxy and like just rugged, like very like minimalist design, like cutting every corner you can. Whereas a lot of these Mars Tech ones are pretty like bells and whistly while still being pretty bricky. And then the Having Arms is actually like trying to like use complex shapes. I've jokingly referred to the Marathon as the egg so far because it does have kind of like an egg shape to it. But I did reduce the egginess a little bit. Anyways, so we have here are 4 different units with 4 different purposes. And I'll talk a bit about these to give you kind of an idea what this higher cost factory is used for. Especially because I just rebalanced the cost tables today, building a boot camp. Construction front's 150 energy, a boot camp's 200 energy, and a mech facility is 600 energy by comparison. So not only do you have to build them, but they are quite pricey. I believe that's roughly the same price as a new fusion reactor. Yeah, that's in fact identical. So yeah, they're a hell of an investment. But what's cool about them is they build at 30 per second instead of 15 per second. So you can spend a lot more resources on these per second to pump out units. And these units are expensive for the most part. We're looking at 400 energy and like we're looking at 5 to 8 morale for each of these units. But like 400 energy, 600 energy, 600 energy, 800 energy. Like these are very expensive trinkets you're getting your hands on. You're definitely going to build a mech facility when you have a lot of income to burn and you're really interested in advancing warfare. What we have elsewhere is we look at like the infantry. It's like 70 energy, 90 energy, 90, 90, 150, 110, 150, 130 over here, 120 over here. There's a lot of little things that decide these values here. Like this guy's an anti-tank rifle. This guy has long-range area of effect artillery. These are kind of like heavy weapons. That makes sense. Grenadier's kind of heavy, but not super heavy. A medic is obviously a very specialized role. Costs more morale because you have to train a medic to do all the doctor stuff. Machine gunner's a little heavier than all, but the rest of them are just like the raider, the rifleman, and the sniper are all pretty standard. The raider is poorly trained, so he's like 3 morale by comparison, but we have like a rough cost table. It's like 90 to 150 energy for a piece of infantry, and between 400 and 800 energy for these mechs so far, and we don't even have the heaviest mechs in. So here's the question. What are you getting for your money? If you were the player who's investing in these, how are you going to feel like this is actually worth your investment? And I will demonstrate this briefly. We're going to make a raider, a rifleman, a sniper, I think an armorman. Actually, well, it's going to machine gunner and an armorman. And it's kind of some of our guys. We're just going to start with the FT combat suit. This is the FT combat suit has twin machine guns that have just a lot of fire rate, like 600 rounds per minute each. So you're doing like 1,200 rounds per minute downrange from this thing. And this thing bullies infantry. Let me get like a fucking just militia member over here so I can bully the shit out of them real quick. Bullies infantry, shreds that guy. Meanwhile, if they want to do damage in return, bearing in mind that they're like a third of the cost somewhere around of one combat suit, not including factory cost and etc. We get a raider here with a submachine gun. He's doing literally nothing to this combat suit. Not a damn thing in the world. And the reason for that is quite simple. The combat suit is heavily armored compared to infantry. The highest infantry is about 5 armor rating. The combat suit has about 8 armor rating, and it is considered medium mech armor. The Thunderbolt has about 5 armor rating by comparison. It is considered light mech armor. The heaviest mechs will probably have about 10 mech armor. In a bit, I'm going to be adding tanks. Those are going to range between 8 and 12 armor for a unit. They're going to be more heavily armored, but slower and generally less versatile than mechs. But if you just want raw firepower, they'll be the way to go. We'll talk about that later. But for the rifleman, we test this guy. This guy's a full-size rifle. We have more damage per shot, more armor-piercing value. This guy's doing like 3 damage a bullet. That's not terrible, but as we can see, we can empty the whole mag into this guy, and we've maybe 1/5 killed him. Yeah, basically 1/5 and some change killed him. That's not a good trade. We could have an entire squad of riflemen trying to cut down a combat suit. But the honest to God answer is, on a cost ratio, the combat suit's going to cut down our infantrymen first. Now, we take the machine gunner, like 2 damage a bullet. It's a more intermediate cartridge, but it still has a good amount of armor piercing value. The nice thing the machine gunner has is just a lot of sustained fire. So, like, maybe a lot of machine gunners behind cover could do decent damage, but again, we're getting really terrible cost returns out of this. We could pick up a sniper. What's a sniper do? A sniper does like 14 damage a shot. He's actually knocking pretty good chunks out of this guy, but he doesn't have a lot of volume of fire, and he's not very fast moving. He's faster than the combat suit, I think. Combat suits are especially clunky in turning. They're really bad at turning. But, you know, this is kind of the gist. You know, Sniper's doing pretty alright by his standards. But then we take out the specialized anti-tank rifle guy, the Armorman. You in the armor does a lot of caring for what that intends to mean. Boom. 30 damage a shot. Big chunks of damage. I only gets 5 shots a magazine, but I can tell you from my experiments, playing against AI, pumping these things out against me, you get like 2 or 3 armormen behind like some sandbags or some short walls. They can actually do pretty good work against a mech suit. They do their job as intended. Although if you get an open field fight, they're still not going to have a very good fight against these mechs. But yeah, that's not bad. So this is the combat suit. It's the entry level one. It's the cheapest by far, like 1/3 less cost than the others, if not less, if not even a greater cost reduction comparatively. And it just has a lot of like anti-infantry roll. But if we use like the combat suit against an actual mech, this guy over here, oh no, he has basically the same gun as infantry. He's doing fuck all damage. In fact, he's using an even lighter caliber light machine gun than the machine gunner. He is completely useless against mechs. He's an anti-infantry specialist. What's worse is that these mechs can't reload on their own. So if we leave an ammo pile lying around, if this guy wants to pick up ammo, he can just go out and grab a magazine. He's good to go. But if the mech needs to be reloaded, well, we need to actually have a guy in an exosuit lumber some heavy ammo over him and reload him. So, in addition to like the higher cost ratio, these guys are also like a lot higher maintenance. They're a lot more work to keep running, but man, they do pay off because these things will just shred lesser targets like they're nothing. Absolutely devastating. We look at the Marathon. The Marathon, much faster. It's actually a medium high speed unit. This is like compared to the combat suit. This is like not even close. The Marathon is meant to be more reconnaissance / light work, but it has some pretty decent range on its twin railguns, which is pretty sweet. And the big thing about having a railgun is you actually have some armor piercing factors. This thing actually does a lot of damage against another mech. This is actually like your real deal entry level, like I'm not fucking around mech. Really good damage. Ammo economy is a little bit better than the combat suit too. So, you know, you're going up 50% in cost, but you're actually kind of getting a lot. You're getting speed, you're getting range, you're getting damage factors, armor, and you're getting total duration of fire, although not necessarily. You know, if we want to use this against infantry, a lot of like the railgun's effect isn't armor piercing, so use this against infantry. We're not like super great against infantry. In fact, we're about as good against infantry as we are against another mech. So this is kind of a specialized tool. But we go to the Auslander. Now, the Auslander has twin shotguns. These are, in fact, armor-piercing depleted uranium flechette shotguns, or something akin to that. I forget the exact terminology. Anyways, this guy you can see has like absolutely nothing for range. However, you actually let him do some damage. He does okay damage against armor. Not great, but okay damage. What he does have is you can see he has pretty good speed, almost as good as the Marathon. And the big thing is he has that yellow bar, or sorry, that gray bar next to his orange ammo bar. The big thing with that is his jump bar, which has to recharge, and he can jump to close the distance while getting elevation so he doesn't get shot at super easily. So you can use this to really try and get the drop on targets, get into close range, do some damage. And this was also a bitch to code due to how fake my physics is, but you can even jump on buildings. Well, actually, no, not that one. That one was not super happy. That was not a very good landing. Yeah, there we go. So it does reject it if you don't land squarely on top of it. But you know, you can walk off it and fall back down due to gravity and stuff. It's not super incredible, super amazing, but yeah. The Auslander does do pretty good work in fairness. So now, the big thing is, what does the Auslander actually kill? Well, actually, that low end armor piercing on those shotguns is absolutely devastating to infantry. And in fact, the spread on the twin shotguns can actually knock out more than one infantryman at a time if it's used properly. Although we're not really getting quite the lineup here. This is more like collateral damage on the secondary target. So, unless your enemies packed together, you're probably only messing up one guy seriously, but you know, this is like an upgrade in terms of like mobility. You can get in fights, you can jump your way out of fights to try and escape combat. You know, it's a much more flexible tool. And it is a little more durable than the combat suit as well. 300 versus 450 health. So, about a 50% boost in durability. Armor is the same though. Mechs are only so durable because articulated armor has to put armor on like every direction equally, and it turns out that actually kind of sucks for really serious grade protection. And lastly, we have the Thunderbolt. You know, the Thunderbolt's great. The Thunderbolt is a flying unit, which makes it a menace because most units, unless they have long range weapons, can't even hit this thing to begin with. Which is pretty sweet. It's also pretty fast moving. Now, this thing does not fly as high as say Jet Laborer. Jet Laborer flies just a little bit higher than this guy, you can tell. But the Thunderbolt is pretty great. Thunderbolt he has pair of twin armor piercing autocannons. Now these things are the cat's pajamas as far as everything else we've reviewed so far. This has the armor piercing of a railgun with the quantity of fire of a machine gun. These things do not fuck around. Pretty good rate of fire, as you can see. Still twin fired. We go fire this guy against a combat suit. Really, like, drop that combat suit like it was nothing. Absolutely devastating amounts of damage. Marathon. Very similar, high amount of damage output. Auslander. Again, really disgusting damage. However, you can see it goes through ammo like candy. And that's one of the three problems the Thunderbolt has. The other is that it costs quite a lot. With the 8 morale, it requires a lot of advanced training for the guy who's going to pilot it. At 800 energy, it is an expensive gizmo, costing as much as 2 combat suits, almost exactly grand total. And its ammo, like I said, goes through like crazy. And the problem with that is that now you have to fly back to base, get a guy to reload you, which you can do, and that's not so terrible. But if you want to feel like a fleet of these things, you actually have to have a really good reloading crew on standby, patrolling all hours a day to reload these guys. Like, you need a good logistics backbone for this little mech air force you can build. But what's cool about this, that's also a fun balancing point, is because it's not particularly durable, being about as durable as the Auslander, despite being a third more expensive, it also means that it takes a third longer and is a third more expensive to repair. So this is where the problems really start to come in. So we get like another Thunderbolt. See if we can shoot the other Thunderbolt this. Yeah, do some damage to him. Let's get that guy to do some repairs. Repair the Marathon. Seems like we're gaining probably like, I'd call it like 5 health per second. It's not great, but you know, you have an actual crew of workers with a decent amount of energy income to spare. You can probably patch this guy up all right. We go to the Thunderbolt. Ooh. Yeah, we are getting probably like 3 and some change health per second back. It's not good. If you want to deploy these things on an en masse basis, and they're actually getting hit by something that has proper range from the enemy, the Thunderbolts are going to spend a lot of time at base being reloaded and repaired. They are expensive toys. But man, they are fast. They are just durable enough to bully smaller units, and they have a lot of firepower on demand, even if it only lasts for so long. They are really wonderful tools, but if you're really going to be fighting enemy mechs at a large basis, please do not build only Thunderbolts. You will lose. You will lose in stamina. I found that out playing the new AI. Holy shit. But you know, this is kind of the picture it's developing. We can see that there's certain matchups that are more or less effective than others, and there's a significant cost, uh, cost risk assessment with getting your various units on the field in the first place. Overall, this is exciting. This is starting to shape up, though. Next, I'm going to add tanks, and I'll talk more about that when it's out. But those are going to be a nice contrast for just like maximum anti-infantry, and maybe they get bullied by mechs, maybe they don't. We'll have to see about that. Depends on the exact parameters. Anyways, that's it for the heavier units for now. There'll be more mechs to show later, but this is like the initial balancing concept.